The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I have a little bit of humble pie to eat. And I thank Lynn in Hertfordshire for pointing out to me that the despicable woman from the post office was Paula Venables, not Anne Venables, as I erroneously called her. Aurora says she forgives me and hopes you will as well. And now, without further ado, I am going to plunge in with one or two contentious matters, which I hope you will be in agreement loosely with me upon. Jennifer Siami says, Lady C, you may be misinforming the public. It was printed initially that the Princess of Wales had precancerous cells. However, her own video confirmed she had definite cancer cells. You need to address this to divert her trolls on social media. Thank you very much for that, Jennifer Siami. Yes, I do need to address it. Because the fact of the matter is the trolls will be having a field day if there is any possibility of giving them an opening through which they can slither like the eels and snakes that they are. Initially, it was called precancerous cells, and then Catherine herself did assert that there were cancer cells as well. I would defer to her superior knowledge on the subject. The gap was created by Rhiannon Mills, who is a respected correspondent, a member of the Royal Rota. She works at Sky News, and she is the one who noticed that there was a disparity between what was said initially and what was said later. I don't think there is any need to be suspicious, because the fact of the matter is that both versions can be accurate, because somebody can have precancerous cells in one area and cancerous cells in another. So I leave you with that thought, and we leave it as it is. It strikes me as extraordinary that there is such suspicion of anything that the Princess of Wales says or does in certain quarters. Remember, this is somebody who was AI, was no longer alive. I mean, the stories that have come up about her, I suppose you could take the view that it's a backhanded compliment, in that if she was not of overriding interest, the press and certain segments of the public wouldn't take the views that they do. But it shows that a lot of people have very bizarre attitudes and find it really difficult to accept the simplest explanations, which, I was taught when I was young that all rational people, before they come up with an extraordinary explanation, seek an ordinary explanation. Before you opt for the most bizarre and unlikely explanation, you could actually try to see if a more likely and commonplace explanation would suffice. Very interesting. Well, there's a lot that I could say that good taste alone prevents me from saying. And that is before we get on to the fact that some of the stories circulating are so bizarre, so out of line, so out of touch that I wouldn't condescend to repeat them, but I certainly know what some of them are and what people are aiming for and trying to push things in the direction of. Quite extraordinary. Janet Connolly says, "Dear Lady C, many thanks for your wonderful videos and for letting us see into your home while you do them. I came across a thread in Reddit the other day which intrigued me. It was regarding Meghan Markle and her ancestry. I remember when she first married Prince Harry, there was an article in the Daily Mail all about how she went from being related to slaves to her now very different status." Then she provides me with the article. The thread in Reddit, however, was saying that her ancestors, and one in particular, were actually slave owners, which I did not think could be true. But I looked her up on Ancestry, which anyone can access, as I do a lot of family research for my own family. I was amazed to see that it was in fact true, and a very near relative actually left a slave in his will, as people did in those days. Slaves were chattels. They were property. They were very valuable property. They weren't only human beings. They were actually property. They were like tiaras, houses, very valuable items that people owned. That's just the reality. I will continue. In view of the people asking Prince Harry to apologize for the British role in such things, it seems pretty amazing. I wonder how it was changed in this Daily Mail article to show it completely differently. My dear. Surprise, surprise. The Daily Mail has a very judicious legal department. I wonder, of course, it is not her fault what happened in the past, just as it is not ours. However, one wonders how the spin was put on the Daily Mail article at the time. Don't say it. I can tell you exactly what would have happened. You can't say that. You can't say that. She's going to marry Prince Harry. You can't say that. If you say that, it's going to cause problems. You have to forget that happened. I think it's called the judicious application of discretion, to be polite. I realize this is a very touchy subject, but I just thought it was interesting. Here is a relative to whom I am referring. I haven't done any more research as I do not have the time. Well, I sort of looked into it, and his name was Richard Ragland, and I think he was born in the uh, late 18th century and lived to practically the late 19th century. He was, I think, the product of a white father and a black mother, if I remember correctly. I'm sorry, I should have had it before me, but I don't. But going off memory, he was what was classified as a mulatto. So he had one white parent and one black parent. And of course, it's a no-brainer. If he, as a man of color, owned slaves, you can depend on it. His ancestors owned slaves as well. So Meghan Markle, rather like Kamala Harris, comes from a slave-owning background. And of course, it's been hushed up. First of all by the Daily Mail, and doubtless by Meghan, and I would not be surprised by the palace as well, because they didn't want to have to deal with anything negative or contentious, especially as how Meghan and Harry, within the first week of Meghan ensuring that her relationship with him went public so that she'd be able to solidify her hold on him and her position with him. So it got leaked. The affair got leaked to the Sunday Express. It's all there in my book, Meghan and Harry, the Real Story, Persecutors or Victims. And the rest, as they say, is history. Suppressed history, but history nevertheless. What is really interesting as well is, speaking about suppression, is that Samantha has refiled her lawsuit. I think it was done on the 11th of November. She sent me a copy of it, and they make some really very valuable and interesting points, chief of which is that Meghan created the situation for Samantha to be trolled viciously, to have death threats made against her, to be deprived of the ability to earn a livelihood, to be traduced internationally with the press as the enforcing a weapon. Because remember, this was in the days when Meghan was the golden girl. Now she's the muddied creature, but in those days she was the golden girl. And of course, Judge Honeywell throughout the case, because Judge Honeywell didn't bother to connect the dots and view things not in isolation, but in real terms. So it's been refiled, and I gather that there is some criticism of it because Harry is referred to in certain parts before he was married as a Prince of Wales. Well, he was a Prince of Wales. He was Prince Henry of Wales. There were at the time of Harry's marriage to Princes of Wales, the Prince of Wales, his father, and Prince Henry of Wales, Harry. So it's perfectly correct to have referred to Harry premaritally as a Prince of Wales, because he was a Prince of Wales. So I just make that point for what it's worth. Wendy Williams says, in Spare, Harry describes coming home and finding Meghan crying on the stairs, one tear left eye. I'm gonna be a mockery. Everybody's gonna say that the baby that I'm carrying is emulating Tom Daly and diving between my knees. To continue, The Housekeeper's Diary, excellent book by the way, by Wendy Barry. The Housekeeper's Diary tells of Diana crying endlessly sitting on the stairs. Meghan doesn't have an original thought in her head. Meghan, my dear, has playbooks. But remember, Meghan is an actress. She doesn't need to have a thought in her head. She simply needs to have a script. Oh, H, I'm so much like your mom. Yeah, I'm just so much like your mom. Both your mom and I suffer greatly. Yeah. I suffer because I'm a proud, confident woman of colour and star of suits. And she suffered because she was the demi-goddess Diana. And don't you think I'm just exactly like your mom? Well, I don't recall anybody ever suspecting Diana of padding. And I certainly don't think that either William or Harry did a prenatal Tom Daly. So I think there might be similarities, but there are huge divergences as well. But it's extraordinary the number of people who have told me that they have spotted things in my Real Diana book. And of course, this is Wendy Barry's The Housekeeper's Diary, which also articulates many of the scenes that Diana used to pull. I think it was in my first Diana book. It might not have been. It might have been. I don't remember when I said it first, but I certainly would have said it in the Real Diana. That Diana, for instance, hurling herself at a bookcase and then trying to say that she had tried to do herself in, was ridiculous. And Diana taking a potato peeler to her thigh and deciding that that was going to constitute a sort of attempt. As I said at the time, nobody ever peeled themselves to death with a potato peeler. So, Diana was a drama queen. There are no two ways about it. She had a very histrionic element to her personality. But Diana had heart. Diana also had authenticity and sincerity. Diana had empathy. Diana had feelings. There are huge differences between Diana and Meghan. Meghan is a simulator. Diana, at least, was the creator of many of the scenes that she pulled, that Meghan has simply copied. H, we're going to have to say that I just can't stand it anymore. I need to sort of, if I didn't love you so much, I couldn't have you suffer another loss. Otherwise, I would have to succumb to my feelings, my ideations, my thoughts. And they don't believed it. Gosh, I tell you. Some people will believe anything, but then I think it takes at least having 4 brain cells to develop a power called discernment. Apple says, or Apple, not it's APLE. Lady C, I just saw Dan Wooten outspoken. He's proven that Narinder Kaur is a troll. Do you take back your very generous tweet that she might be misguided and could become a more decent person if she sees the light? Well, I don't suppose I need to take back the fact that she could become a more decent person if she saw the light. I did see that interview, and to those of you who didn't, if you want entertainment, I would suggest you go to Dan Wooten Outspoken and look at it on his channel. It's called The Clash. It's Dan, P. Dina, and Narinder Kaur. And she really is a Kaur. Because I have now discovered that I was extremely generous because she played Dan and P. Dina brilliantly. She simply denied that she had ever trolled Catherine. Well, it turns out she's been one of Catherine's biggest trolls. And also, what is even more disturbing is that she feels entitled to use racist language while describing Catherine. But if anybody criticizes her or Meghan Markle, they are racist because she and Meghan Markle are a secondary shade of pale. Let's put it that way. She has been, it turns out, one of Catherine's biggest trolls. She has performed very much in keeping with the example of the Sussex Squad. In fact, there is some doubt as to whether she isn't a leading member of the Sussex Squad. And she has kicked off with Dr. Shola a lot of anti-Caucasian rhetoric and being really vicious and nasty. And this has allowed the, quite frankly, craven, pusillanimous, just pathetic media in the United States of America, people like Stephen Colbert, who have taken a leaf out of Narinder Kaur's book and spread hateful lies about Catherine. I mean, the bizarre stuff that they have come up with. The mainstream media in Britain as well, the left-wing media have been giving this woman a platform, including on some of the major television shows and major television channels in this country, to spew forth the vilest abuse. And she has done things like describing Catherine as KKK Kate, so, you know, Ku Klux Klan Kate. And remember that half Caucasian on his father's side and half Caucasian on his mother's side, pretend mixed race creature called Amid Scabies, has asserted, obviously through Meghan, that Catherine is a racist. So Narinder Kaur, and she really is a Kaur, as you might gather, I'm actually playing on the word. She has described condescendingly Catherine as being white, rich, and privileged. Well, if somebody flipped that coin and described her as, in the accurate terms, that she would quite rightly say was racist. But when she says it, it's perfectly okay. She was accusing Catherine's photos of being fake, and the racial bias that she has used with Catherine, and saying that Catherine was jealous of Meghan Markle, that Catherine is stiff, dull, and unrelatable, while Meghan, of course, is just so relatable. Well, of course, Narinder Kaur, Meghan is very relatable. That's why she wears $67,000 and $70,000 worth of clothes to a school where the children are so poor they have to be fed meals by the school, and then she leaves a rotten box of going off vegetables as a gift. Oh, and also the children had to buy her book. She has asserted that William and Catherine are secretly separated, which they certainly are not. And she has been mentioning things about affairs. Narinder, are we going to go down that route? Huh? Now, what was it that the Getty family got in touch with me worried about? Oh, that Gordon was being targeted for his money. Well, Narinder is a racist troll. She's a Sussex Squaddie. She denies that Catherine is popular, and she asserts that Meghan is popular. Well, in fact, Catherine is respected as well as revered and popular on both sides of the Atlantic, while Meghan is deplored as, quite frankly, what was it that Bill Simmons called her? A grifter? Narinder Kaur denies all of Catherine's accomplishments, and she attributes Meghan's lack of accomplishment as success. It's total projection and displacement. I have to say, I stand by what I said. If she would see the light and decide to embrace fact instead of racist fiction, I think she could actually end up being, well, actually, let me take that back, because I'm beginning to think that maybe she doesn't have too many scruples, and maybe she and Meghan are two pieces of the same pod. And there are some people who simply never learn. So on that note, I will move on to what Jennifer Brown says. Dear Lady C, I have a serious question. Remember when Meghan went on Oprah and lied about the conversation about her child's skin colour? Do you think it's possible she's the one who brought it up and the family did not take the bait? I would love to hear your thoughts. Much love to you and the fur babies. Well, we know that Meghan and Harry are not truthful. We know that Meghan exaggerated on Oprah, and that they have, or she has since then, expanded the story even further. Because remember, on Oprah, Harry said there was one comment before the marriage. He didn't say what the comment was. He said he would never repeat what the comment was. That, of course, means it could have been perfectly anodyne. And so they're hiding behind opacity. She said on Oprah that the same incident took place repeatedly during her pregnancy, while she was pregnant with the prenatal Tom Daley. So right there, there's a contradiction, which means that one of them is lying or both of them are lying. And since neither of them has a good track record where veracity is concerned, I don't think we need to belabor the point too much. She has subsequently fed Amid Scabies, because either she fed him or Amid Scabies made it up. But neither she nor Harry has yet denied Amid Scabies' accusations against the king and Catherine. So the lie grows. We don't know what was said, and even if we knew what they were saying was said, and they managed to agree, which they've never managed to do so far, we would be very stupid to place any great reliance upon what they finally were coming out with. So it is entirely possible that Harry, currying favour with Meghan, took back a perfectly innocent comment, twisted it so that, oh, Meg, you see, I'm protecting you. I'm protecting you. I'm a big man. I am macho man. If you will give me one of those BJs that everybody mocks me about, I will protect you till the end of my life. Yes, I will, to the ends of the earth. Meghan, that's really good grass. Did you get it from your mother? Oh, H, you know, I'm an expert on grass. I even did up spliffs in little crocus bags in Jamaica when I was married to Trevor. And then she simply made up, because Meghan looks for matters to criticize. Meghan looks for twisting the most innocent and anodyne comment and turning it into an insult. She seeks offense. She seeks offense and she finds offensiveness where there is actually often praise. For instance, the £30 million wedding that she dismissed as a spectacle. And they were gracious enough to oblige all of us, jerks and peasants, with the performance. Because remember, she said it was a performance and a spectacle. But they'd been married 3 days before. And then Justin Welby actually had to point out that they were lying. I think we have their measure, don't you? Rose Gregory says, we would be a poor and sad country without the monarchy. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. If we had no monarchy, if we were a republic, we would be as insignificant as Austria now is. Austria, when it was headed up by the Hapsburg emperors, was one of the great empires of all time. Austria is now a beautiful, charming, little insignificant country. When you go to Austria, what do you see? What is of interest in Vienna? Everything that is of interest in Vienna is imperial. They have endless promotions about Franz Josef and Sisi, the Empress Elizabeth, who was very beautiful and was assassinated in 1898 in Switzerland. And he died in 1916 at the height of the First World War. Nothing about any of their presidents, nothing. All about the monarchy. The only thing they have to sell, aside from fine music and fine musicians, and is the monarchy and its remnants, including all the beautiful buildings, because Vienna is a great imperial city that is now the capital of a rump state. We will be as insignificant as Austria. Do we want that? I think there are many people in this country who are so covetous and so determined that nothing is above them that they would be delighted to drag everybody, including the country, down to their mean level. Susan Ableton says, having followed you for some time now, Lady C, and trusting completely your comments certainly regarding Prince Andrew, I will say this. I totally believe your comments regarding the royal media using Prince Andrew as a scapegoat to hide Harry and Meghan's continued bad behaviour or divert attention away from it, in the hope that he will come to his senses and maybe seek a berth on the ship back home. I also think it's enough that they have been using Prince Andrew as a scapegoat. Prince Andrew, whatever else he may be, is not a traitor like his nephew. He has remained stoically silent regarding this. The problems I have is the staff that His Majesty currently has in his employ, including his media group. Well spotted. Also think the same for Prince William. Both His Majesty and his son ascribe to what is now, I believe, an outdated 60s, 70s over-liberal view of society and what it supposedly needs. I wonder at the people they employ and how much they really support and work for their employer. Look at the scrub with William regarding the timing of the Earthshot Awards. Also look at what I believe is the undermining of their own employer, namely the King and indeed Prince William. These two royals are just too earnest, to use your words, and too kind. Well, I have to tell you, to an extent, I agree with you. I have seen in my lifetime the diminution of the quality of some of the royal family's advisors. They do have some really good sterling people. I'm not sure that they have enough people of substance the way, say, 40 and 50 and 60 years ago, the palace was run by very arch, very considered, very sound, sensible, down to earth people who sometimes were a bit old-fashioned and sometimes too old-fashioned and sometimes somewhat out of touch with the great mass of the British people, but they, by not playing to the gallery and pandering to the penny section, they at least maintained decorum and dignity. And the reality, as somebody wrote in and told me, she said she is Australian and her teenage children observed to her how they love all of the ceremony and the extravaganzas. They don't want, this is her teenage children, they want the panoply, they want the spectacle, they don't want, and they would find a boring and uninteresting, a drab show, whether it be by the monarch or the other royals. And obviously, I mean, you don't go to the theatre to look at somebody scratch his nose the way you scratch yours in the secrecy of your boudoir. You go to the theatre for action. You go to the theatre for interest. You go to the theatre for stimulation. The royal family needs to put on a show. I agree with all of that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be relatable, but I am saying it shouldn't be the same as, it shouldn't be pedestrian like pedestrians. And also, I will say that insofar as the monarchy and some of its advisors are concerned, I can see where there are stories that, and there are postures that are encouraged. For instance, Anne Wilson. Now, Anne Wilson is actually a friend of mine, and he's a fine writer. He is quite well connected, rather intelligent, but he comes out with the most bizarre things. He never used to, but now he does. And the latest thing he's come out with is that Prince Andrew must come clean about where the money for Royal Lodge is coming from, because the monarchy cannot be covered with yet more shame and embarrassment. Come on, Angus Wilson, grow up. You know as well as I do that Prince Andrew doesn't have to explain a damn thing to anybody because he's no longer working royal. Do you have to explain to people how much money you have and where you get your money from? No, you don't, because you are not being supported by the state, and you're not being paid by the state, and you're not doing public duties on behalf of the state. If you were in Parliament, you'd have to, because if you have a public profile as a public servant, you have to. But Prince Andrew has been retired. It is totally illogical. It is wildly inconsistent. It is, quite frankly, stupid to further an argument like that. It is provocative. It is sensationalistic. It's simply stirring the pot. No, either Ian Wilson has done it because he's a jobbing journalist and a jobbing writer, and he needs to earn money. That's valid if he wants to do it for those reasons and let himself down by coming up with claptrap like this. But is he also being commissioned to deflect attention away by coming up with rubbish like this? I mean, why should Prince Andrew explain anything to anybody? It's his money. It doesn't matter how he came by it. If he's committed a crime, charge him with it. If he hasn't, he has every right to privacy, just as you, Angus Wilson, and I do. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what subjects you would like us to be addressing. Godspeed. Bye-bye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.